Welcome to the True You podcast. And I want to welcome our special guest today, Guthrie Sayen. Is that correct? Do I pronounce it right?
Guthrie Sayen. You got it.
Guthrie Sayen. Yeah. So Guthrie and I met just this year for the first time. I'd heard his name through IFS trainings. Guthrie, I'd heard of you. I think that you might have done a training through the Institute with Brian Jadon. Does that sound right?
It does. I think
Yeah.
it was 21,
Yeah.
somewhere
And-
around then. It was called Coaching for Self-Leadership.
Yes. And I attended a version of that you weren't involved with. Someone by the name of Ann was working with Brian at that time. And it was one of the first, actually, I take that back. My training was back in about 2018 that I attended. Yeah. So Brian goes way back. And so when I saw that you were offering a training and I'd heard such good things about you, despite the fact that I'd been trained already in the IFS model by IFS of Canada and the Institute at several levels and intimacy from the inside out, you and I had a conversation and it made sense for me to come to your training. And Guthrie, something I want you to know is that I consider you to be, I don't think you're even as old as I am, but I consider you to be an elder and a mentor. And I really respect you. So I'm delighted to have you on the show. And of course, I'm also here with my co-host, Dr. Martin Kettlehuck, also known as Marty. Let's hear your voice, Marty.
Yes, my voice is here. I have a voice.
Okay. So Guthrie, I'm gonna read what you sent over for the bio, and then we'll just jump right in. Okay. Guthrie is the co-founder of the Institute for Healing and Awakening, creator and lead trainer for Coaching with Spirit, a comprehensive coach training with a spiritual orientation, creator and lead trainer of the Coaching with IFS programs, which provide an in-depth immersion in IFS over a year and a half with emphasis on helping practitioners awaken. Welcome to the show, Guthrie.
Thank you very much, Bill. And thank you for the personal introduction right at the outset. I was quite touched.
Yeah. Well, I've been to a lot of different trainings, and some of them are very didactic, very educational. Some of them have some heart. Your training, in my experience, for the most part, is all heart, and lots of great information. Some of which I somehow missed along the way. So it's really enhanced the work that I'm already doing. So I appreciate you.
Thank you, sir.
Marty, I want to make sure that there's room for you here. Obviously, Guthrie and I already have a relationship, and you're just getting to know them. And something tells me that your questions for Guthrie may be more pertinent and relevant for the listener than even mine. So please bring your voice.
Okay.
On your mind right now that you'd like to say or ask.
Oh, no, a lot of the words are going to be really interesting to unpack. Not just words. I don't mean that like, it's all about words, but they're powerful words. Things like self-leadership, awakening, spirituality. So I'm licking my lips. Let's get
Great. Well, I'm wondering, Guthrie, how you'd feel about talking to us and our listeners about the way that you open each of the training sessions. You and Marty open each of our training sessions with a meditation that's built on basically 4 principles of focus. Would you be willing to talk about that?
I would. So whatever kind of work you're doing, if it's in the field of healing or helping other people, presence, being present, available with an open heart is the paramount skill. It trumps all the technical skills. And so I've created a meditation that I call the 4 building blocks of presence. And the first one is ground. And we can feel into our ground right now by just dropping down into our seats, feeling the full weight of our bodies landing on our 2 sitting bones. and feeling our feet flat on the floor. What that does is this opens a connection to the earth, to ground, and it gives us stability and a sense of safety when we're grounded. The second step I call core, and that's being able to bring your awareness into the core of your body and feel from the inside the somatic sensations, the emotions that are present, and needs or wants that may be present. It's where we're the most tense. And when we've got core, we've got confidence. In other words, we can confide in the information inside. One of my definitions of coaching is relocating the source of authority from out there to in here. And when you've got core, you've got your own sense of authority. You've got authority from within. You don't have authority from without. And so core gives you confidence. And it gives you a sense of embodiment. So when you're stable and embodied, you're then ready to open your awareness outward in all directions. And just imagine that you're hearing a sound right now in the distance. That sound is arising in a field of awareness. And when you're able to rest into this field of awareness, you've got context. You've got space. There's lots of room for whatever's happening inside me and whatever's happening inside you. So at this point, we've got ground, core, and then what I call field. Just notice what happens when you let your field open outward. You can sense the room. You can sense beyond the room. If I were to ring a bell, you would hear the sound of that bell. Then it would disappear. But the field, that spacious, awake field, would remain. And then from there, you include the body so that you have field awareness and simultaneously you're embodied. You're present here now and you're ready to focus. So that's the fourth step. So it's ground, core, field, and focus. And when you've got all four, you're in the catbird seat. As the old Southern baseball announcer Red Barber used to say, meaning you're in the spot.
Wow, really nicely described, Guthrie. Thank you.
I love these. What did you call it? The four blanks of
The
presence?
four building blocks of presence.
Building blocks. Okay. So I'd love to just learn a little bit more about that as a concept, like why these four, why in this order, like that.
So it was me trying to reverse engineer what I do so that I can help others do it. There were certain things that I just did intuitively. And I wanted to figure out how I could help others do it. And one of the things I noticed that I always did was that I grounded myself first. If I'm doing this really quickly, if I just need 2 seconds, I feel my weight on my chair, which I'm doing now, and I go to the field. Then I'm ready.
Gotcha. Right. Okay. Very good. And I love also what you said about presence being the key to it all. And I agree totally. And I'd just love to, I don't know, say more about that, because I think is really something that most people are walking right past. That effectiveness at many levels that comes from presence. We just don't have time for it. Like, that would be nice, but I got to get some work done here. Right.
So I've spent a lot of time training coaches, and I've also spent a lot of time coaching people. And what I've noticed is that when we slow down and allow the connection to open between two beings, something magical begins to happen. Both systems begin to relax. My system relaxes more. Their system relaxes more. And I find that we can get into a self-amplifying loop that brings us closer and closer into a heart connection. And it's in that place that people begin to naturally heal, because they are sitting with someone who's fully present, fully available, and is offering unconditional positive regard. Quote, the great Carl Rogers. And how often do they get that even from their partner? And when you're present, you can listen without an agenda. You're not formulating a reply. You're simply available so that that person can hear themselves speak from a deeper level from within, and then have themselves reflected by an observant of it. In a sense, we're creating a third entity. So, Marty, you're an entity or a system. I'm an entity or energetic system. And as we connect, like right now, we're creating this intersubjective space. And we can tap into that. And it has its own intelligence. It's smarter than we are separately.
So I'm thinking about the work that I do with non-coaches, right, as well. And I think I just want to make the point that everything that you're saying also applies in those kind of conversations. It's not only do you establish this third entity, so to speak, this third energy, this bigger, better, more compassionate and wise intelligence, but also, I mean, this just happened this morning. I was coaching a young businessman in New York City, and he was trying to, figure something out. And I know that he's capable and can answer the question, but I could see that there was just too much going on. And so I led him in really these four, but in a different order, honestly, to reproduce my experience, right? I go ground, body, field, core, ending in that inner authority. And then I asked him, now go back to your question that you were trying to answer. And he knew the answer right away.
Yeah. So you helped him get grounded and present. Right. And then his native intelligence, his native creativity was then available to him. He was relaxed in a safe, accepting place.
Right. I think that third entity was present. It's the shared intelligence.
Yeah.
Right. And now he was able to tap into it. Whereas before he was just running around in his own mind looking for the answer. And once he got present, then not only was he grounded in himself, but this larger field was available to access.
Exactly. So when we're connected to the field, we're connected to a larger intelligence. We're connected to what I call spirit, which is the creative force in the universe. And spirit is leading evolution, and we are still evolving as a species.
Right.
A universe system.
Thanks for indulging me in that line of questions. I'm a real believer in the essentialness of the meditation practice for human beings. And so I just wanted to impress upon our listeners, that there's a lot more of you available when you slow down for a second.
Yeah. Let me offer a really simple model of the human mind that your listeners might find useful.
Mm-hmm.
Subjectively speaking, the only thing that exists is consciousness and the contents of consciousness. Let's just think about that for a moment. From a I-person perspective, the only thing that truly exists that I'm experiencing right now with the two of you is consciousness itself and the contents of consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense? So think about the contents of consciousness are generated by our five physical senses. So vision, hearing, tasting, smelling, feeling. Those are all sensory inputs into consciousness. Those are sensory objects of consciousness. But we also have mental objects, thoughts, emotions, memories, opinions, etc.
Mm-hmm.
So consciousness is like the sky, and the objects of consciousness, and it's always present. It never goes anywhere. And the weather changes. The sky doesn't change. It's always spacious. It's always holding the weather, the physical sensations, the emotions, the thoughts. And they're transient. They keep changing. Now, here's the kicker. The kicker is the quality of our lives is determined by our relationship to the contents of consciousness. The quality of my life is determined how I relate to those objects. How do I relate to the physical feelings, the sights I see, the thoughts, the memories, the emotions? How I relate to those intimately affects quality of my life.
Right.
So let's say you have in your hand, in your open hand, you have a little steel ball, and that steel ball is covered with very sharp points. And if you hold your hand open, it can rest there without causing any trouble. What happens if you squeeze it?
Ow.
That's what we do. We squeeze our thoughts. We squeeze those objects of sensation. We identify with them. We become them. They think that's who we are. And what my life is about is having people open their hand. In other words, going into field awareness and being able to pay attention what they're holding without hurting themselves. Most people, most of the time, are hurting themselves because they are identifying with the contents of their consciousness. instead of simply offering presence, like we offer our clients presence and
Yeah.
conditional positive regard, we want to do the same thing for our internal world,
Yeah. Yeah.
to be with.
Awesome. Thank you. Well said.
Thank you.
The same guy, the same client, later on in the session, I asked him about the homework that I had given him the week before, and he said, "Oh, I last night I said to myself, darn, I forgot about that homework." And I said, well, consider, instead of squeezing that pointy ball that you open your hand, I didn't put it in those words, but and recognize that you remembered it last night rather than right, because you have a pattern, I told him, of putting yourself down. Like the good news is you actually remembered it last night. There's that relationship between us and the contents of our consciousness, and that's absolutely, I mean, really, that is what gives the texture to our life.
Yeah. So I think Bill in the beginning talked about, or maybe it was you, Marty, but one of you mentioned, let's define waking up.
Uh-huh.
And waking up is bringing consciousness from the background into the foreground. So consciousness doesn't need to be developed. It's already there. It predates our birth. It will postdate our death. It is there.
Mm-hmm.
Cannot be damaged. But for most people, it's in the background. And so we live in a thought-based understanding of the world. In other words, we have the capacity for OS 2, but we're living in OS 1.
Mm-hmm.
And what we want to do is to bring OS 2 into the foreground. And it can hold OS 1. It
OS operating system.
OS 1.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, after all, whatever it is that's coming up, it might be really ugly, it might be unpleasant, whatever it is in the field of consciousness.
Yes. And
Right.
and there is a part of you that's calling it ugly. So that's another part that could also be held lightly.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to identify with that part that holds the judgment. It's a sub-mind.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's a part.
It's a part in the language of internal family systems.
Mm-hmm.
So someone comes to you, Guthrie, or me, or Marty, or any coach, and says something that can essentially boil down to, I'm not happy with the quality of my life. And in your beautiful language, you might meet them where they're at and say it differently. But in the language that you're using today, you're saying that the quality of your life is in direct relationship to how you're holding the contents of your consciousness.
Yes, exactly. I think Hamlet says something like this to his friend Horatio. There's nothing good or bad, but thinking makes it so.
That's exactly what he says.
Yeah. Yeah, I've memorized that. And I think it was Ralph Waldo Emerson says, for what is heaven for one man is hell for another. So it all depends on how we hold it. Once our basic needs for our basic physiological needs are met, basic needs for safety are met, our happiness is really determined by how we treat, how we react to, or simply respond to the contents of our consciousness.
what happens that we're aware of.
Yeah, whatever happens that we're aware of, but how we relate to it. To go
The
back
content,
to a ball,
the-
do we squeeze it or do we simply hold it?
yeah, I'm breaking it down just a little bit more than that. So the contents of our consciousness is what happens that we're aware of.
Yes.
And then what we do with that determines the quality, whether we squeeze it or
How we relate. Do we identify with it or are we simply aware of it?
So I know that you may not intend this, but I'm noticing that this conversation is actually walking through what it might look like to go from what I just call suffering to suffering enough to want to make a change and be willing to reaching out, asking for help, and finding yourself in the presence of a coach that thinks the way that you and I think, and the way that Marty thinks. By the way, my language is much more street, I suppose, which is just it's not what's happening out there. It's what you think about what's happening out there that determines your happiness. I just say it in a slightly different way. I think we're saying the same thing, wouldn't you say, Guthrie?
Yeah. It's not the circumstance, it's how you relate to the circumstances.
So now a potential coaching client comes to one of us comes to a coach and says, "Help me." And what you're laying out is, well, let's understand what's happening first. Let's both agree on what's actually happening. In other words, we're not going to be talking about your ex-wife other than how you're holding the memory of her or the relationship with her. We're not going to be talking about your scarcity around money. We're not talking about your broken down car or your relationship with your parents. We're talking about how you relate to all of that.
Ultimately, that's what we're doing.
Takes a while to get there.
I wouldn't naturally say that in the beginning.
No, you wouldn't say that, but that's your goal, isn't it, as coach? Is to help him get to that point so that you're both in at least agreement about what there is to deal with?
So I think in every coaching session, there's a meta agenda. And it's shifting the identification from parts to consciousness, from parts to self with a capital S. Because if I have access to what IFS calls self, which is awake awareness, then I have access to creativity, compassion, curiosity. I be interested and available. So life circumstances become something you can play with rather than being dominated by. And for me, the beginning of a coaching session begins before the client arrives. It arrives when I get present. And then I invite them to make room for whatever's happening inside them. Because you never know where that's going to lead. One of my sayings is, the system knows how to heal. So if you think of each of us as a system, it's this amazingly complex interaction of subminds or parts or subpersonalities. And it looks really complicated. But if you enter into that system with humility and respect, and as a learner, the system will gradually teach you how it wants to heal and awaken.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what I think of myself as a student of another person's system. And that I'm the learner. And their system's going to teach me how I can use my skills to open up whatever wants to be open.
I love that. Would you say it again? I know you'll say it differently this time. Nothing wrong with the way you said it just now, but I just want to hear it again. That's so important. As a coach. Yeah.
So a metaphor that I often use, Bill, is I say when we enter another person's system, and we begin to come into an intimate relationship with them, we're entering a foreign country. And we don't know the laws. We don't know the language. We don't know the customs or the dress code. And so we enter with humility and deep respect for who this person is right now, because they've survived a lot of hurt. That's our initiation into being human, to be traumatized. And if we can come with this kind of humility and curiosity of the student, the system will begin to reveal how it wants to heal and awaken. It will begin to teach the client and me how that wants to happen.
Mhm.
And so, even though I have a very powerful tool like IFS at my disposal, I don't force the protocol onto the client. The client will tell me what's working and not working, usually indirectly through parts. Nonetheless, I will get the message, oh, I need to adjust. And so one of the things when I do something, I go, oh, I need to adjust. I don't blame myself for making a mistake. I go, oh, new information.
Yes.
How can we adjust? That I've just learned something. So that's
Yeah.
one way I stay present. So sometimes, that both of you know, we have intuitions. And, I have a decision to make when I have an intuition. Do I share it or not? Because you really want the client to have the intuitions. But sometimes our intuitions can be of service to the client. Or, well, let me stick with that. And I share it and it doesn't land right with the client.
Mhm.
I can get in a fight with myself or I can let it go and just dance with the client.
Mhm.
So it's like you're in a dance competition. Yes, one of the partners did something, but together they can correct it so quickly. Many people won't even notice the misstep. But it requires a kind of trust of your partner and humility. And it also requires us to go easy, to have compassion for ourselves. Because if I beat myself up, I've now thrown dissonance into that intersubjective space we were talking about.
Mhm.
And what we're doing in that intersubjective space, like two dance masters, is creating more and more coherence. Because the
Yeah.
more coherence we create, the more access we have to the field.
Which suggests to me, and if I'm interrupting, just tell me, wait a second. That's fine. I'll wait. But I've been mulling this over, that there's not only um, identifying with it, holding it, but there's also othering it. Like, oh, this part of me is wrong. This part of me, it should be, you know, gotten rid of. It should be fixed. That's bad. And this could go to the outside world too. But in that intersubjective space, it's not other. Even if it's somebody else, that's me being an idiot over there. Like, so I have to approach it differently. I don't just cancel it. Wait a minute, that's part of all of us. It gives me access to address it. So I think that othering is a very popular way right now. I find that that we are not enjoying the intersubjective space.
Yeah,
We other something in that space.
I agree. So we see othering constantly going on in our culture. And we do it internally. So, an old joke is that I could be very rich if I could sell parts guns. And you could buy a parts gun from me and kill off all the parts in you don't like. But you can't kill parts. It's just like you can't destroy energy.
Right.
Moreover, you're misunderstanding these parts because parts, even in bad roles, have a noble purpose. So when we stop othering, we stop the war. So we turn around, we say, hey, wait a minute. I've been judging you. I've been pushing you away, been stuffing you into my unconscious. What if we actually talk?
Right. Right. There's a lot that gets left out of most traditional leadership coaching. True leadership isn't just about you, it's about your relationships to people, to issues, and to objective reality. Schedule a complimentary discovery session to get at all of it. Go to listeningisthekey.com, click on the pop-up.
And then I find out it's secret history, why it's been doing what it's doing. Because the secret history of misbehaving parts is buried in the past. Sometimes it's part of explicit memory, but often it's part of implicit memory. It's not normally available to us in our everyday minds. But we can still get to that material.
Right.
And we then understand, oh, this was an adaptive behavior when we were 4 years old. It's maladaptive now that I'm 54.
Yeah.
Guthrie, you've said so many things that stand out to me, and if you don't mind, if I'm not interrupting a flow for you, I'd like to just go back and point out the things that jumped out and landed for me of what you've said so far. I want to go all the way back to your reference to core, and I'm thinking about nonviolent communication, because you described that core really is an awareness of what Rosenberg would call what's alive inside.
What's alive inside? I love that.
Are you familiar with the nonviolent communication?
I am. I think Marshall Rosenberg left a great body of work.
He certainly did. And that was probably, I only recently, I thought I'd already read the books. And if I did, I've changed so much that the me that remains has no memory of anything that he taught years ago. So I revisited, apparently for the first time, for the parts of myself that were listening this time. And I'm getting so much value from what he taught. And that was one of the first pieces for me, was to begin a connection with myself, and then therefore with another person, with curiosity about what's alive inside and authentic disclosure of that. If that's all I ever got from nonviolent communication, that would have been enough, but I got so much more.
Yeah, I agree. That would have been enough. It's basically his book is subtitled Compassionate Communication.
Yeah.
And that's what he's teaching. And when we begin to identify with awareness rather than the contents of awareness, we have natural access to compassion. We don't have to develop it. It's already available.
Yeah.
And compassion is the ability to be with suffering without having to do anything, but being available to be of service if that would serve.
I'd like to spin a new theory with you.
Sure.
In the 10 minutes that we have remaining for your feedback, your response to it. So here's the idea. I'm beginning to notice that when I follow a client's system far enough along to find the hidden secret parts of them and the wounds that made them secrets and hidden in the first place, there's a commonality in those wounds. The first level that I did in those wounds, the further level and in the past that blocked access to the innate resources that we all have until we become blocked to them. So my theory is that every burden is tied to either an event or conditions that blocked us from access to our innate resources. What do you think of that?
I completely agree. I mean, to give this a really big picture sort of view, every insult to our system has an address in the space-time continuum. In other words, it happened at a specific time that you can find on a clock, specific time, date, year, and at a specific place. And there was a contraction in the space-time continuum. And when we go back to that place with unconditional positive regard, we release the contraction. And we're free. And if we do enough of this, we actually free ourselves from the space-time net. I mean, we can still live in it and negotiate it, but it doesn't control it.
Love it. Part of the IFS model, for those that are listening that are familiar and been trained in the model, is the integration of qualities that there hasn't been room for as long as the system was burdened in that way. And so one of the things I love about this awareness is that now it makes even more sense. It's not just that there's more room spatially inside for qualities such as, let's just say, joy, playfulness, creativity, and competence. It's more like an acknowledgement that now that the space has opened up, now that we're no longer, what word did you use? Contracted?
Contract.
No, now that we're no longer contracted and you feel that spacious lightness, openness that's happening inside, notice what it is, not only that you are aware is emerging, but what you want to emerge that hasn't been there. Maybe there's room for that now.
I think there is. One of my many wake-up experiences was that I was out for a walk. And I had gotten the idea from one of my teachers, Jeffrey Martin, that we actually suppress our own sense of fundamental well-being. And the thought just came to me. It just like popped into consciousness. What if I stopped blocking joy? And from that moment on, virtually anytime I remember it, I can access joy. It's there always. We just have to stop suppressing it.
Yeah.
So, Bill, in that, in asking that question, you said that you used to think of shame. So now you're saying there's some traumatic event that causes the contraction. Is shame just an example, and now you see that there are others, or is this below that, like even more original than the shame? Is something happened?
I think it's all integrated at the same level. That the way I'm thinking about it is that the shame or the shaming that left shame, is what Guthrie's talking about, the contraction, and that literally squeezes the life right out of us because it's not safe enough to feel joyful anymore. It's not safe enough to display that, or to experience it. It gets shut down either because there's fear or shame or guilt or some construction of thought that says, okay, this is the law in this new land. This land is forming and evolving in this moment as I realize I'm not safe to just be who I am, which brings us all the way back to the true you and the reason that we're having this conversation in the first place. We have less access to who we really are because we're so busy being afraid that who we really are is not okay. And therefore we're putting all of our energy into trying to be who we think we need to be to survive that.
Yeah. So the front we present to the world is basically our protector's best guess to what's going to keep us safe.
Yes.
But just coming to shame for a moment, I can't resist this. So it's my belief that everything has its purpose. And you would say, well, maybe shame is the exception. But I discovered in my own personal word that what shame is an awful, awful feeling. It's like a very heavy, wet blanket. But imagine if that heavy, wet blanket is protecting you, as it was in my system, from terror. Might actually be thankful to the shame. I mean, it's just amazing what we discover if we're willing to be curious and non-judgmental as we go looking around inside.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that's back to the part of what I find so interesting about what you said is that all encompassing blue sky of consciousness or intersubjectivity, right? And so nothing that appears in that space is like anomalous. Like it all has purpose. It all has a reason. It go up to it, get into it, discover why it's there, whether it's shame or something else. It serves a purpose.
It does. And when we have access to the field of awareness, and we're identified more with consciousness than the contents, we don't judge any of it. We can just be curious about it all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I want to honor the time that you said that you had for us today. So we need to wrap it up here very shortly, Guthrie. And if it's okay, I'd like to end with two things. One is my favorite quote from today's conversation from you. And the other is to ask you how folks might get in touch with you if they're interested in your training. So the quote here, please let me know if I misquoted here, but I believe what I heard you say was our initiation into being human is to be traumatized.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's when we agree to incarnate, we're agreeing to be hurt, to be traumatized.
Yeah. Apparently that is the case because that seems to be what happened. And
I mean, the birth itself can be traumatic.
Are you familiar with Weller? I'm looking over at my bookshelf for some help and it's not coming right away. Here it is. The Wild Edge of Sorrow by Weller.
No, but I love that the title sounds like a quote from a poem.
He has, it's poetic. The whole book is poetic. And he's not an IFS person, but he talks about trauma in a way that defines it more clearly than I've ever seen. Do you mind if I grab it real quick before you leave?
I would love to hear.
All right. It's Francis Weller. The name of the book is The Wild Edge of Sorrow. And the quote, he's actually paraphrasing his mentor when he talks about it. He's talking about Carl Jung. And he says, he's talking about complexes. And complexes are, from what I understand, what forms from trauma. He says, complexes are fragmentary bundles of concentrated emotional energy formed when we were confronted with an experience too intense for us to successfully digest.
Yeah, we were unable to integrate.
That just really
disintegrate it or fragment it.
Yes.
And it creates disharmony in the system. We're unbalanced and we're not whole. So healing is integrating those fragments, and that's how we become whole again.
The fragments as a result of the trauma. All right. So Guthrie, if someone wants to get a hold of you and look into your training, and where would they go? Where would you recommend? What would you recommend they do?
I would send them to The website is healingandawakening.institute. Healing and the awakening. Healing and awakening .institute. And that's where most of my courses are offered.
And the training that I'm in is called Coaching with IFS.
Coaching with IFS 1.
And Marty, who was a guest 2 weeks ago, is your co-trainer.
She is.
And the co-founder
And I
of the Institute.
co-founded the Institute together.
Yeah. Great partnership. You guys do a wonderful job. I so appreciate you. So, in fact, I'm going to see you next week in the next training. Is it next week or 2 weeks now, I think? Yeah.
I don't know off the top of my head. But I look forward to it, Bill.
Yeah.
Marty, thank you for being part of the conversation. I enjoyed meeting you.
Pleasure to meet you.
Thank you, Guthrie.
Take care.
We appreciate who you are, that you would be listening to this podcast, and want to acknowledge all those parts of you that yearn for the experience of the true you.
If you like this episode, click like, share it with others, and be sure to subscribe. Listen again next week for the newest episode.
Check show notes for a transcript and a link to resources, including a link to let us know if you'd like to be a guest on our podcast.
Thank you for listening and going on this journey with us back to the true you.